This is an interview for the Veterans History Project Oral History Seminar. My name is Colton LaBeouf, and the United States veteran being interviewed is Carlton Brown. This interview was conducted on Saturday, March 27, 2004, in East Falmouth, Massachusetts, at the home of Carlton Brown. Thank you for taking the time to do this interview. It will be stored in the Vermont Folklife Center of the Library of Congress for educational purposes for future generations. I understand you served in World War II. Could you explain what made you decide to join the military?
After Pearl Harbor attack, the draft was in existence at that time, and I felt that I would have liked the Navy better than going into the Army. It was more or less the patriotic thing to do at that time.
What was your rank?
Gunner's mate, 3rd class.
And what division were you in?
I was called a Task Force 38 in the South Pacific.
After you got enlisted, what happened and where did you go?
From boat training in Rhode Island, which was only a quick training of 3 weeks, mainly to get your inoculation shots so they could get you out aboard ships where they needed us. I went from boat training after 3 weeks to the South Boston Navy Yard aboard a brand new ship, the USS San Diego, the day it was commissioned. January 10th, 1942. We did a lot of provision, put a lot of provisions on the ship that were brought daily. Of course, as always, the cleaning that was done. We had to learn our battle stations. And after a couple of months there, we took a shakedown cruise and went down to Norfolk, Virginia, where we did shooting practice with our main battery, primarily the 5-inch guns we had, at a towed sleeve, towed behind an airplane so that we could have a target, and he was safely away from the target, of course. And after that, we took another cruise up to Portland, Maine, come back to Boston again shortly after that, and they did other small jobs aboard the ship that had to be done. We left there sometime in May, I believe it is, went through the Panama Canal and went into the city of San Diego, California, the city the ship was named after. We were only there a few days. We left and went to Pearl Harbor. All them battleships were sunk. After we were assigned to a task force, which was Task Force 38 at that time, we went out and met up with a carrier and other ships that were making strikes against some of the islands where the war was going on at that time. I can't remember all the names of the islands we made strikes at, but we were accredited with 13 battle stars. We got into different ports that were under our control, briefly for supplies and fuel, although we did a lot of fueling at sea. The big islands that I do remember as we progressed towards Japan was Truk Island, which was supposed to be their big stronghold, but we met very little opposition there. Of course, in the meantime, we're making strikes against other islands, which I can't remember all of them. And then we finally made our way into Tokyo Harbor. They called the war over. We anchored in the outer harbor for a day, and then we were assigned the first major ship to enter the inner harbor of Yokosuka Navy Yard. We tied up at the dock, where the next day dignitaries from Japan came aboard, and they were met by dignitaries from the United States on the dock, and they accepted the official surrender of the Navy Yard. We were there only about a week, and they were going to have the signing of the peace treaty with Japan. That the war was completely over aboard the USS Missouri, which was anchored out into the harbor. The day they signed is the day we left to come back to the States, because the war was over.
Can you explain your most vivid memory of serving during World War II?
The first serious thing I saw was the USS Wasp, a carrier, when it got hit by a torpedo and it exploded. They had to take everybody and everything they could off the ship. And then we had to send destroyers back to shoot torpedoes in it to finish sinking it. It was too badly damaged from the initial explosion to save it and throw it away. I was the trainer on the gun mount, and I had a sight that I could look through, and I could see all the action going on, although we were not at battle stations when the explosion occurred, but we immediately went to battle stations after it happened. I was one of the few where inside the gun mounts that we could look out and see anything, because I had that eyesight that I could look through.
What was the happiest moment during your service time?
Well, there's got to be a few of them. The first real happy moment was when we heard that Japan was surrendering. The second real happy moment was when we got word we were leaving Japan to come back to the States. We were very happy to pull into Pearl Harbor and get a little break from being at sea. Had a little recreation center there that we could go over to and kill some time, play ball and things like that. And then when we left there, we headed for San Francisco. And it was such a thrill to see the Golden Gate Bridge as we entered into Frisco Bay. We were home in the United States safely.
What was life on the ship like during the war?
Well, there was about 700 men aboard ship. You didn't have a lot of free space. A lot of bunks in each of the compartments. You were close to some, real close to some fellows that you got real friendly with. You knew practically everybody aboard ship. If you didn't know them by name, you at least remembered seeing them and knew pretty much where their stations were, where they worked. Sometimes in the evening, we'd go to the mess hall, we'd play cards after dark. Of course, lights were generally out by 9 o'clock, so you couldn't see too well to do that after 9 o'clock. You did a lot of your laundry yourself rather than send it to the laundry. Had 3 good meals a day, which I considered very good meals. They had an ice cream stand, open daily for a little while. They had a barber shop. They had a dentist. They had what they called the sick bay where the doctors were. Anything wrong, you could always be taken well care of. Overall, we get a little touchy at times when we be at sea for so many days. You get a little irritable. You might snap at somebody once in a while, but They overlooked it because they went through the same thing.
Did you sustain any injuries?
No, I personally never had any injuries at all. In fact, aboard ship, we never got hit or any way by any enemy firing that hurt any of us. Nobody, to my knowledge, was injured in any way other than accidental things, broken arm, broken jaw, or something like that, where they fell or something. But no wartime injuries. We had one time got assigned to take a destroyer in tow. They got hit by a kamikaze suicide plane. We took men aboard ship from there. Some of them died and some of them made it through. Those that died, we had to bury them at sea. They were sewn into a canvas bag, and with a flag over the board they were laid on, they were slid off into the ocean and had services for them. And that was the only thing that ever happened aboard ship for any injury.
Do you know anyone held as prisoner of war?
No, I never met anybody. I've heard a lot about people being held prisoner of war, but I never personally knew any of them.
How long did you serve in the Navy?
I was in the reserve. I served approximately 44 months.
And when you came home, what was that like?
A joy that can't be expressed. You have to go through it. I got home on the 1st of October. I got married the 20th of October. And from there on, I raised a nice family.
Are there any servicemen that you still keep contact with?
Yes, I keep in touch with a few. There's a fellow that I was very, very friendly with aboard ship that I lost contact with after I got out. I just recently, I would say probably a year ago, found out that he was in North Dakota, and I periodically talk with him on the telephone. There's a couple of fellows around Massachusetts here that we get together and have a luncheon once in a while, which is nice. Although some of the stories that are told amongst us, it makes me wonder sometimes if I was aboard the same ship they were on.
How were you discharged?
I was honorably discharged from the Fargo building in Boston. We had a physical examination which was required to prove and have on their records that there's nothing wrong with you, or whatever was wrong, if there was anything, they would have it on record so that you could claim it later on.
Is there anything else you would like to add?
I can't offhand think of anything other than the war that was supposed to have ended all wars hasn't been true. We've had too many wars since.
Thank you for taking the time to do this. This ends the interview with Carlton Brown, veteran of World War II.